I saw. Top of the evening, folks.
Evening.
Have y'all noticed how long it takes us to change our minds when we're upset? I've been hearing people bitch about how dry it is for 2 months. And all I've heard today is, I sure wish it'd quit raining. So we're probably in the right place. I am an alcoholic. My name is Gary Kincaid.
Hi, Gary.
And I am really, really grateful for a sobriety date and for a new life. And one without the other is kind of useless in my experience. Mine started July 25th of 1994 in Odessa, Texas. And today I live in Sulphur Springs. I love to get the end of the story in. I live in Sulphur Springs because I have 2 children that I abandoned in my alcoholism. And by the grace of God, through the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I live in the same city where they and my granddaughter live. And they want me there. Now, I've often told folks, we're not making any promises that every story is going to turn out the same way. I've got a sponsor, Steve McCarrick in Kerrville. He has a son that he's only been able to speak with 3 times, and Steve's got 32 years sobriety. And Steve works a good program, and Steve has made the amends, and Steve has done the work. So far, that relationship has not been healed on both sides, but it has been on Steve's side. And someday, there are going to be some grandchildren that he knows about and has no contact, and if they want it, there's a college fund for them. Now, I'm sharing that little story to say, we try, and try is the operative word in here. Nobody is on the A+ honor roll in AA or the Al-Anon family groups. We try to live a spiritual walk, to be on this path, and we do it no matter what they are doing. One of the most difficult things for any of us is to take directions, to take actions without having an outcome in mind that we believe must occur in order for us to be okay. We take the actions and we leave the outcome up to a higher power. And that's one of the consistently most difficult parts of this walk. Because if anybody tells you, oh, I'm just going to leave it all in God's hand. I hear this all the time. I'm just going to let God talk to me. I'm going to let God guide me. God gets blamed for a lot of stuff. Ricky tells the story that if you think God's going to take care of everything without action on our part, go out tomorrow, write about $10,000 worth of hot checks and just say, I want to give them to God. See how that works out for you. There's some action required on our part. And I never have enough time. Tonight I'm going to try and concentrate on 10 and 11, but the problem with that, if you're new here and if you've been here for a while and you may have forgotten, in the beginning, it looks like our steps are linear. 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. They're not. They're circular. And after a while, they become an amalgamation or a tapestry, and they are all one. People have asked me the last number of years, what step are you on? And I tell them, I'm not on any step. I'm hopeful that by now, rather than me working the steps are working me. And we kind of get pulled into this way of life. We've got a reading for tonight. And the reading is on step 10, page 84. And I hope you've got your big books tonight because you might need them. I guess some people think that having it on their phone is having their big book with them, but I don't know. I had to say that for Ricky. On page 45 of your book, Bill is just about finished with talking about drinking. It's not going to be mentioned very much. And on page 45 it says, lack of power. That was our dilemma. Do you remember that? And if you happen to be members of the Al-Anon family group wanting to work the program out of the big book, this is where it would start for you. Lack of power was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. Now I'm telling you, if you're an alcoholic, it's not obvious. Unless you've gone through the doctor's opinion in the first 44 pages. And you've gotten to our two questions. If when you honestly want to, you find you can't stop entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably an alcoholic. Says nothing about DWIs, says nothing about relationships, says nothing about times to jail, says nothing about divorces. It's those two things revolving around our relationship with alcohol. And some of the members of the Al-Anon family group have discovered that they have relationship with, or the parent of, the child of, the spouse of, the employee of, someone who's probably an alcoholic. So this lack of power works for all of us in defining what he says there on page 45. That's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power that will solve your problem. Now, that sounds like good news, isn't it? Hopefully, by golly, we all have come to the conclusion that there's some kind of problem going on in my life, that try as hard as I would and want as much as I would, and all of the things that I've tried before, none of us have just wanted life to turn out the way it turned out. Most of us have been working, trying to fix things. Many have gone to counseling, many have gone to church, many have gone to the gym, many have moved, many have gotten rid of a relationship, many have, gotten a new job. We've been looking for something out there to make us okay in here, and the problem is still with us. But notice that reading says it will solve your problem. Doesn't say problems. So the good news ought to be, if you came in here tonight thinking you had a bunch of them, you only got one of them. That includes a bunch of them. Well, this reading on 84 and 85 Now, we talked about last week 4 through 9 being one step, and you may have thought I didn't spend enough time on the amends and things. I didn't do that because we got good directions for them. They're direct amends. I've read the book twice. No place does Bill Wilson say you can text an amend. He doesn't even say you can telephone one. Direct means eyeball to eyeball. And in those situations where there may be people we cannot find or who have died, there's directions for that as well. That step says, made direct amends to such people wherever. It does not say whenever. I've heard it 28 years. Well, when God's ready, He'll put them in front of me. God's not the one making the amend. We make our list, we go over it with our sponsors, and we make direct amends, even if they're people we hate, because the amends are for me. We found in the beginning of the 5th step that the whole purpose, I think it's page 72, the whole purpose of the program, and he writes this 3 or 4 times because he knows we're not going to pay attention. We've been trying to gain a new relationship, a new relationship. We're not trying to get an old one back. Bill talks about that in his story while in the hospital. I'll have a new relationship with my Creator. On 72, he says we've been trying to gain a new relationship with our Creator and to discover the obstacles in our path. Well, that's what the inventory is about. And we discover those obstacles. And to get those out of the way requires, in great part, that I make direct amends. We repay money with money, love with love, and hate with love. 2 things that I hate to have to say, but I will. No, I do not put myself on my resentment list. And no, I do not put myself on my amends list. Just thought I'd throw that out there. This brings us to step 10, which suggests, it's a big word here, that we continue. Now that means I've already started something. That we continue to take personal inventory. What? I've done a 4th and 5th step. We continue to take inventory because I look around the room, I know most of you, there's only 2 of you in here that are absolutely perfect. And I'm not going to tell you who you are because then you'd blow it. None of us are going to live perfectly. We're going to continue to need to take inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. More direct amends, it sounds like. Here's a bad word for some of us. Not you, Todd.
Okay.
We vigorously, that means work like hell. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. It means while you're out there making that first round of amends, you're already starting a second round. Because things like selfishness and self-centeredness Do not die an easy death. Big promise here. We have entered the world of the Spirit. That's a huge promise. What it really means, we don't make it. We don't create it. It's not something that we have to perform to make happen. We're not getting good to get it. It's always been there. And by taking these actions of simply seeking and trying and making an effort, Bill even says, however feebly and falteringly, we enter into that world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Okay? Any of y'all remember the first day you ever came to AA and you just life all beat to hell, or came to Al-Anon and your life's all beat to hell? And you remember saying to yourself, I have got to find some way where I can start growing in understanding and effectiveness. You know, I've got to find me some love and tolerance in my life. By now we know why our lives, Bill says it in the chapter to the agnostics, laying aside the drink question, laying alcohol out of the way, laying aside the drink question, we find how we've made such hard going of living. Bad news, new people. All of that behavior that has scuttled your life, you can't blame it on alcohol. I believe I mentioned this is a hard word, and not everybody in AA will agree with it. And that's okay. I allow people to be wrong as often as My first sponsor's wife told me, Gary, drunk words are sober thoughts. I can no longer say, well, I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't been drunk. I wouldn't have cheated on my wife if I hadn't been drunk. Might not have. Maybe the drinking made things possible, but the idea may have already been up there. How do we know that? Because not every alcoholic cheats. Probably not every member of the Al-Anon family member either. I'll include y'all on that. But that's what we've been doing in steps 3 through 9, is laying aside the drink question. That's why this is not a program where we're helping anybody. When we say, put the plug in the jug, just don't drink and go to meetings. That is not a program of recovery. Because what happens when we just don't drink and go to meetings and we've done nothing about our selfishness and our self-centeredness and our resentments and our fears and our self-pity and our self-loathing, the time soon comes when we cannot stand being sober. So we drink again. This is not an overnight matter. Here may be a word that sounds like it's bad news. I tell you, people, it's the greatest news in this book. It should continue for a lifetime. I am so grateful to have been shown a way of living that continues for a lifetime. I am more excited about Alcoholics Anonymous, about the gift of my sobriety today than I've ever been in my life. And you can take a look at my life and it looks like most of all the it stuff has really been healed pretty well. But we have some certainties of life that we're not well equipped to handle. Nobody is. Not just alcoholics. One of those certainties is we get born. I promise you, nobody in here was hatched. Every one of you was born. We do not get to choose the family we're born into. On the surface, it may appear that many are dealt hands much harder than others, and they most likely are. But by the time we become, quote, adults, we have to find a way to say that was then and this is now, and I'm going to choose to live differently. And you and I were people who could never put the past aside. And we kept bringing it with us into the future. Another certainty is aging. Is anybody in here as young as you were 25 years ago? There are some of you that weren't even here 25 years ago. Aging changes things. That's the truth. It requires something that was very difficult for most of us. It remains difficult. And that's called growing up. One of the reasons we must have a fellowship where we are with people that are like we are and who are trying to stay on a path that works for all of us is because we got to grow up in public. Bill writes in the 7th step in the 12 and 12, for us, the process of gaining humility has been unbelievably painful. So we're not saying to you, whether you're brand new here or you've been here 32 years, that there are not going to be instances fairly often where we are faced with just showing our butt to everybody. And having to own up to that, inventory it, make amends for it, and grow up a little bit. Another certainty is illness. It's going to happen in one way or another to all of us. And the fourth one is going to happen to every one of us, and it's death. And for many of us, we've had experiences in this life where the death of loved ones, we may have gladly traded our own life to have not had to experience their death. You get the idea? Life's hard. Lived alone. Life's hard. I know today why I drank. It's too hard for me to live it on my own. I had to have a higher power. Even though I may not have called alcohol that higher power, there's things going on in life that I can't handle, I can't face, I can't take care of without some help. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Now, where'd you get acquainted with those? In that 4th and 5th step. Continue to watch for those. They're not gone. You know, this might be a much better meeting if I'd say, okay, Todd, you and Ricky got to leave the room. And we could get them out of the room for a minute, but by golly, they'd sneak back in that back door pretty quick. It's the same way with selfishness and self-centeredness and dishonesty and fear. I can take the actions and they'll be removed for a moment, but they're going to be looking for a door to come in again, because life continues to come at us. You get the idea? When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. What do you suppose we ask God is? Anybody? We ask God sounds a hell of a lot like a prayer. We ask God, when we get home that night and we're in bed, to remove them then? We ask God at once. If you take your program just out of meetings, and many meetings, you're going to hear, well, every night I do my 10th step. Now, there is a bit of sadness to this for me, but I just do not have the opportunity to get in as much trouble in bed anymore as I used to. Step 10 is not an at-night step, it's a walking around step. It's being in the middle of the traffic. It's finding out your spouse or your loved one took your car keys. Drink your Dr. Pepper. Sometimes something that simple will set off 3 days of fighting. We ask God at once to remove them. Wait, there's more. Sometimes that prayer will work. A lot of times it won't. We discuss them with someone immediately, not that night. And I found out that, my girlfriend took my keys and I'm late to go see my other girlfriend and I'm upset about that. And I get on the phone and start telling her what a bitch she is. Now, oh wait, that sounds like a resentment. So I asked God to remove that, but I've already called her a bitch. What am I going to do about it? I better call Ricky. I know he's got a lot of experience in it. I need to discuss it with somebody and then make amends. And then here's the one that gets left out so often. And here's where we're going to start on 10 and 11. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Step 10's got 4 actions in it. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Now, if you can envision, and this is just my take on it, comes out of the book, I believe. There are really 3 areas of action in the 12 steps. Every step has prayer. So prayer is an action. We don't care if you believe in God or don't believe in God. Believe in prayer. Take the action. God will eventually prove God to you. We don't prove God and then start praying. Prayer is a part of this program. Transparency. We have never been fully transparent with anybody in our whole lives. I was always presenting myself, even when I was 5 years old. Back then we knew, I better not let Daddy find out about this. I'll go tell Mother what I need her to know. I'm only 5. But we become so hidden. We think from others, but we're really hidden from ourselves. We've got to start nobody's going to have a spiritual way of living if they're not transparent. That starts when you walk in and pick up a chip. You may not like being here, you may not know what you're doing, but you have come in and said, I've got some kind of problem. You started transparency. When you get a sponsor, you become a little bit more transparent. You get a home group and you start allowing them to get to know you. And that's tough because most of it, I mentioned somebody before the meeting. My first few years, I bet I went to 500 meetings hoping that she would be there. And I bet I went to 501 hoping like hell she wouldn't be there. But we get real early in AA, we start coming in here trying to look good. And we don't want people to see what's really going on. Well, we start that process. Then when you get to 4 and 5, that's just, ripping ourselves wide open. And that doesn't do any good at all unless I continue with it to the 9th step. But I've got to have transparency. I've got to find some way to stay transparent. I can't tell you how many people I've heard over there. We had a speaker here for Founders Day 3 or 4 years ago, going through one of the worst times in his life. Had about 35, 36 years. I talked with him. He said, man, y'all need to get somebody else. I'm blowing it at home. I've blown it at work. I'm going broke again. I said, you need to get up there and tell them about that. Something we get in ourselves, I don't want to talk about that. The newcomer might get a bad impression. No, the newcomer might start discovering the one thing that we've never discovered before, and that's that people can live with the truth. And we've got a way of making changes in that. The third part, prayer, transparency, and service. Those put us on a path that we know is really going somewhere. And we continue with prayer and with transparency and service to others, because life, we grow older, we get sick, and people die, and there are hardships. It rains too much one night when we don't want it to rain. And right in the beginning is part of step 11, a major part of step 11. If the alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through 2 hours of morning meditation every day. Wait, it doesn't say that. Through going back to church, through work and self-sacrifice for others, cannot meet the certain trials and low spots which lie ahead. Life's always going to keep coming at us. I'll hear people say, I got to learn to live life on life's terms. To hell with that. I need to find a way to live life on God's terms. And God's terms are growing in understanding and effectiveness of others. God's terms are love and tolerance of others. God's terms are the prayer of St. Francis. God's terms are impossible unless I've got some guidelines, and unless I get in the middle of a group of people who are walking that same walk. Then on those days when I can barely walk it, there's some people that can put me on their backs. One of the hardest, most difficult parts of transparency many in this room have not yet encountered, and it's one of the most difficult things for old timers to do. And that's to get to those words, would you please help me? We gotta have help, and there's people around to do it. But step 11, 10, they're all together. Wait, 12's part of it. Let's look at prayers. What does step 11 say? Todd, read it.
Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out.
Okay, sought through prayer and meditation. I'm going to go through some of these. Turn to page 63. That's the third step prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee to do with me as Thou wilt. Bill writes it wrong. I wouldn't have written it this way. Remove my difficulties, period. Amen. That's how I'd have prayed it. Wait, there's some service included in this prayer so that victory over them might bear witness to those I would help of Thy way of life. Our prayers always have some service to others on the other end. Get over to your inventory. This is part of the step 11. Now, how many times have you heard in meetings, if you just got somebody you can't stand, pray for them for 2 weeks that they might have everything you want for yourself? That comes from a story in the book. It does not come from the working text. This was our course. We realized the people who wronged us, that's not just the 25 or 30 years before we're doing the first inventory. That's this morning. Y'all probably found, some of you, there are people who don't know how to drive when it's raining. Probably some of them are wronging you out there on the street. People who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, though we did not like their symptoms and the way they used to serve us. They, like ourselves, were sick too. Here's what we do about those people with whom we're angry or we hate. We ask God, remember that's a prayer, to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant to Carol, or any other example of a sick friend you may have. We're praying for us. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, how can I be helpful? God, save me from being angry. That's part of the 11th step. That's supposed to be a part of our daily work. Now, we all know about the 7th step prayer. I'm going to skip it because we all know about it. I'm sure all of y'all represent people in AA and Al-Anon. If you're new here, you need to know this, that within about 90 days, all of the family issues were perfectly healed. They had all come to you and said, oh my God, we were wrong. Let's just forgive and forget. Everything's going to be fine from now on. Did that happen to anybody else? Some of you have been part of this recovery for 25 or 30 years or longer, and you've still got family members that you can't stand or they can't stand you. Correct? Well, there's some 11th step work there. Top of page 83. Yes, there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. We, not them, we must take the lead. How they're acting, what they're saying, what they're doing is none of my business. while I am doing and my actions and behaviors are, and it's impossible without God's help. So part of the 11th step is given to us in the 9th step, asking each morning. What does each mean, Ricky? Does that mean like every day? For the first year. Asking each morning. In what? In meditation. So it presumes that I'm doing my morning meditation and prayer. That our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. I'm going to suggest to you that it's been my experience that if you have those people out of one of those certainties that you cannot escape, and that's the family you're born into, and you're still in collision with them, whether they're in the same state or not, the collision continues up here. I'll ask, how long have you been making this prayer a part of your daily ritual? Or have you ever? It may work to do what the prayers in AA are designed to do. They're not designed to change God. They're not designed to change those people. They're designed to change me. So I can get what? Back to page 25. Where there is a solution. Not 10. I've read the book at least twice. I never find another one. There is a solution, thank God, that almost none of us liked. Means the self-searching. The leveling of the pride. Boy, that is tough. And sometimes I think it's tougher the longer we've been here. Which the process demands for successful consummation. Then we get over to the 10th step. We got more prayers for walking around. Then we get to step 11. It says it suggests prayer and meditation when he's already given us 4 or 5 of them. I don't ever find a prayer there that says, God, keep me sober today. Now, I'm not saying that prayer is not for some. I don't find it in my book. I find the prayer that says, God, help me help you do your business today. And God's got an impossible job. For us, it's possible for God. But when I'm playing God, it's impossible. Because God's job seems to be loving unlovable people. And I have to discover over and over again, I'm here to do God's work and not God's job. And I got to be reminded all the time, God's work is you do these things and you fit yourself to be of maximum benefit to me and others. And give this stuff a shot and see if it doesn't work. Step 11, he says, this is 85, suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter. Better people than we are doing it constantly. That's bad news, isn't it? There's somebody better than me. It works if we have what? The proper attitude. And, there's always a caveat, and work at it. This is work. Well, we go back to 25 and it tells us, what do we get out of all of this self-searching, leveling of the pride, picking up this simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet? Right there in the middle of the page, it tells me what the outcome is. A new attitude towards God and the universe. Whoa, wait. I want some new circumstances. I want them to change and be nicer to me and treat me better. I want more money. I want the president to do this. We get a new attitude. He brings it up again here. If we have the proper attitude and work at it. Now here's a promise if you're new. Dadgummit, I wish I had more time. But here's a promise. Middle of 86. Did any of y'all wake up this morning? Anybody? Have you recognized the difference between waking up and coming to? That ought to be a big deal. I woke up this morning. No toe tag, no active warrants. A good day's on the way. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. Now, y'all remember this morning when all of you did this, so you can confirm to me how well it's working. We consider our plans for the day. Look at that, you got some plans now. Before we began, there's another one of those, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. That means that Ricky and Todd have slipped back in the room. And they're going to every day, and I'm going to have to stay vigilant, asking God to help me to stay the hell out of their way. Not them particularly, but what they represent. Selfish, dishonest, and then that really bad one, self-pity. And he gives us 2.5 pages of what to do. You see, we've got some instructions. And y'all have heard me say this 1,000 times, and I've got 2 minutes to end with. We're going to do step 12 next week. I'll try it by group inventory again. Did anybody in here have a bath or a shower, let's say, in the last 3 days? Good. Anybody put on any deodorant during that time? How about brushing your teeth? Whether they're in your head or in the jar, it doesn't matter. Get kind of particular about your makeup. I was down in Beaumont this weekend. I did not have the right conditioner. I could do nothing with my hair. And I noticed it. And tried to do something with it. We all know the value of physical hygiene. And it took us all a while to learn the value and to learn to do it correctly. Kids don't just naturally at 3 start saying, I want to brush my teeth, take a bath. You know, they have to experience a lot of embarrassment and other things, and they get into that. Now, the more spiritual among us would call this a ritual. More commonly, it's called repetition confirms and strengthens habit until faith becomes natural. We have to repeat things and repeat things and repeat things and repeat things. All the directions you really need or on a bottle of shampoo. Most of them will say wash, rinse, repeat. It's the way it is with these steps. Just repeat and repeat. I would not think about leaving the house without doing my physical hygiene. If I don't, my life stinks. People will be repelled. Steps 10 and 11 suggest spiritual hygiene. Oh, I suppose I could pray on the way to work. I could probably brush my teeth on the way to work. I've seen it. It's a lot more effective, however, if I do it at home before I leave. If I do not do my spiritual hygiene on a daily basis, my life is going to stink. And I am going to repel people. Today, I wouldn't even think about leaving the house without, and I don't do an hour of that. I've got the same routine that I've done for about 27 years. You find yours. The book gives us direction. I'll have 5 extra minutes tonight, and I'll take 5 off the 10 extra I'll use next week. Now, I've told y'all this before, and I don't want to send anybody to therapy, but part of my morning is I read 60 to 63 every morning. I read it. When Ricky and I are in that crack motel, I read it. I really read it when I'm traveling with somebody like Ricky, I won't say. Probably do that 325 days out of the year, because I don't want to be the actor playing the director today. I usually take a shower every morning. This is the part I don't want to get anybody to go to therapy on. After the shower, I got a full-length mirror on the back of my closet door, and I look at myself naked in that mirror. If you can't start your day laughing doing that, you're never going to laugh again. Try it sometime. Todd, my sponsor, tells me, he said, if you ever start looking good for 2 or 3 days, call me. And I'll point at me, and I'll say, and you got plans of taking that seriously today? We've got an evening review that's part of that hygiene. It's really it's the mark of grace of the whole program. This program's nothing but grace. It says in the evening, it's part of the 11th step, top of page 86. We review our day. People, it doesn't take 5 minutes. And we look and see, oh God, I did a few things right today. Oops. There's 1 or 2 things here when I got over playing the actor and I started becoming the director. Pop, with your help, I won't do that tomorrow. Hope you'll forgive me. And if it hadn't been too egregious, that's enough. If it's been real egregious, I got to get on the telephone or go see somebody and say, I lied to you today. I gossiped about you today. That transparency. I have never met anybody in AA on the A honor roll of AA. Some of us think we're there from time to time, but nobody's an A+ student. A C is a really good grade for me. Some days I get a C+. But the good thing about that evening review, it's an open book test, people. Is God graves on the curve. And I get a little smiley face on my day. And I can retire it. When we retire at night, it says. So get with the program, the one that's in the book. I would urge you, no matter how long you've been here, if it's a short while, get with 2 or 3 people and just read the damn thing out loud together for maybe the first time in your life. And when it comes someplace to do something, just do it. And see if after a year or 2, remember it's a long period of reconstruction, you've discovered the greatest response to most of the emotional problems we have with other people becomes a working part of your life. Nearly every problem, real problem that I have with somebody, I have discovered over the years, dies when I neglect it. And just don't try to fix it. It just dies of neglect. So we'll try step 12 next week, but step 11 includes all those prayers, which we do not. It says if you belong to a religion that requires morning meditation, we do that also, not in place of. God bless and thank you.
Thank you, Gary. All right. Who am I going to pick on? And come up and do the chips? Sure.
Hi everybody, I'm Jeff and I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, this was hard to get into the last. Oh, here we go. There you go, I figured it out. Okay, here at Lake Street, we recognize links of sobriety with a chip system, and our first one is our most important. It's a 24-hour chip. And anybody like to try our way of life for 24 hours? Anybody have a wet one they want to turn in for a dry one? Anybody have 30 days continuous sobriety? 2 months? 3 months? 6 months? What do you guys do? 4 and 5? 4 and 5, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, 11 months. Okay, I don't know when years are celebrated.
Last Saturday of the month.
Years are celebrated last Saturday of the month with an eating meeting. Bring a covered dish if you can. If you can't, just come enjoy the fellowship.
Let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Mom, will you take us out, please?
Who keeps us sober?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. He coming back, if it works, if you work it.
Otherwise, leaves.